She
gonna
was a
be
storm
okay.
in silk,
know,
never
but it's
needing
just...
anyone. He was the calm
This
who
changes
refused to back
everything.
away.
We did it, Malik.
Tonight, with
We
her chest
actually did
tightening, she
it.
must choose.
We did, Elena.
Control or him.
Against all odds. You were incredible.
Before we dive in, make sure to hit subscribe, tap like, and share this video. The more voices we reach, the louder these stories become. And drop your city in the comments. Let's see where love finds us. By the time the elevator doors opened, Tessa Langford had already shredded her lipstick with her teeth. She caught her reflection in the mirrored steel. Thick, curvy body poured into a midnight blue silk blouse, pencil skirt hugging her hips, blonde hair pinned in a sleek twist that didn't match the chaos in her chest. Her mascara was perfect. Her breathing wasn't. Miss Langford? The assistant hovering by the glass doors flinched when Tessa stepped out. They're already in the boardroom. And, the consultant's here. Of course he is, Tessa muttered, voice clipped, because nothing says trust your leadership like bringing in a stranger when the building's on fire. She didn't slow her stride. Her heels snapped against the polished floor, each step a warning flare. Staff parted in her path the way people step back from thunder, eyes dropping, conversations cutting off mid-sentence. She felt it, the way they watched her, their brilliant, brittle queen of crisis, wrapped in silk and static. If they knew how hard she was holding herself together, they might have looked at her differently. Or maybe that was the point. Control was the only thing keeping the whole scaffolding from crashing down. The boardroom door stood open. She walked in like a storm cloud with an agenda. The executives were already seated, ties straight, screens glowing with red numbers and awful charts. At the far end, near the window, stood a man she'd never seen before. He wore a simple dark shirt, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms that belonged more to a mechanic than a mindfulness coach, and charcoal trousers that did nothing to hide the solid strength underneath. His skin was a rich, deep brown. His posture relaxed in a way that made everyone else look brittle. He had short, cropped hair, a neat beard, and eyes that didn't flinch away from her in that familiar mix of awe and fear. He just watched her, calm, steady, like he'd seen storms before. Tessa, the CEO started, too bright. This is... I know who he is, she cut in, dropping her leather folder on the table with a soft thud. HR's latest bandage. What I don't know is why we're wasting time on breathing exercises when we're bleeding clients. A few people shifted uncomfortably. The man didn't. I'm Malik Warren, he said, voice low and even, carrying across the room without strain. I'm not here to make you breathe instead of fixing the fire. I'm here so you don't burn yourselves down while you're putting it out. Her gaze snapped to him. He wasn't smiling, but there was something quiet in his eyes that irritated her more than any patronizing grin would have. Cute line, she said. We done with introductions? Because we have a crisis map to finalize and a press call in 4 hours. Tessa, the CEO murmured, we agreed to give this a chance. No, she corrected, silk whispering as she took her seat at the head of the table. You agreed. I was informed. The room waited for impact. Someone's pen clicked, stopped. The projector hummed. Malik moved around the table without hurry, placing a plain notepad and pen in front of each person like he had all the time in the world. When he reached Tessa, he didn't look away. His hand, broad and steady, set the pen down just beyond her fingers. Looks like you haven't been informed of much that wasn't on fire lately, he said quietly. Her spine went rigid. Is this part of the workshop? Diagnose the difficult woman in silk? No. His voice stayed soft, unbothered. It's just an observation. Ready to start? She hated that part of her wanted to say no. Hated more that some small, exhausted piece of her whispered yes. Instead, she flicked open a folder. You have 15 minutes. Then we get back to real work. He nodded as if she'd given him a gift. We'll start with you, then. The whole table stiffened. Tessa's head snapped up. That's not how this works, she said. If you read the brief, you know my team is the one fraying. I'm holding the line just fine. Are you? Malik leaned lightly against the edge of the table, not looming, not shrinking. Just there. Because from where I'm standing, you're doing triage with your bare hands and no gloves. She opened her mouth, sharp retort ready, honed by years of boardrooms and men twice her age telling her she was too much. But he lifted a hand, palm open, fingers relaxed. Not an accusation, he added, just a picture. Something about that open palm, the complete lack of threat in it, disarmed her more than if he'd slammed his fist on the table. "Fine," she said tightly. "Paint your picture. 15 minutes." He dimmed the lights slightly, enough to soften the harsh edges of the room. The city outside turned into a shadowed backdrop of glass and steel. Tessa felt the silk at her waist, snug and expensive, suddenly too tight. "Okay," Malik said. "Here's the deal. You've been living in fight mode for months, maybe years. Your body doesn't know the difference between a PR disaster and a car crash at this point. I'm not here to tell you to just relax." He rolled his eyes slightly, earning a reluctant snort from someone down the table. "Because that's useless. We're going to do something else." He looked straight at Tessa. "We're going to practice calm for calm." The phrase landed in her chest like it recognized something. "I don't have time to be calm," she snapped. "That's the storm talking." His gaze didn't waver. "I'm talking to the part of you that's so tired of holding up the sky." Silence hummed. Her throat burned suddenly, that hot, humiliating pressure that meant tears were coming if she didn't clamp down hard enough. "Absolutely not." She straightened, pulling her armor tighter. "You don't know me," she said. "You're right," he agreed instantly. "I don't know why your hands are shaking when you think nobody's looking. I don't know what voicemail you ignore at 2 a.m., but I know what your nervous system looks like when it's stuck on emergency. I've seen it in soldiers, nurses, single parents, founders. It's the same storm in different weather." His voice had softened, but not out of pity. It sounded like recognition. Her fingers had in fact started to tremble around her pen. She curled them into a fist under the table. "You want us all to close our eyes and count clouds?" she asked, reaching for sarcasm as a shield. "I want you to breathe in a way that gives your brain proof you're not actually dying," Malik said. "You, especially." He moved to stand opposite her at the far side of the table. It put a length of polished wood between them, a buffer that felt strangely respectful. He wasn't crowding her. He was meeting her. "Steady. Humor me for 60 seconds, he said. "If it's useless, I'll sit quietly in the corner and you can pretend I'm a potted plant." Someone actually laughed. Even Tessa's mouth twitched against her will. 60 seconds, she said, "and if anyone mentions this to the board, I'll have legal bury you all." "Noted," Malik said dryly. "Feet flat on the floor. You don't even have to close your eyes. Just loosen your jaw a little. No one's grading you." She exhaled sharply, more like a scoff, but she did it. Her jaw ached. When had she clenched that hard? "Breathe in through your nose as I count to 4, he said, voice dropping into a slower cadence. "Then out through your mouth as I count to 6. No drama, no perfection. Just give your lungs a little room." He watched her, not the others. Tessa hated being watched. But this felt different. Not like he was waiting for her to fail, but like he was keeping time for both of them. "In, 1, 2, 3, 4, he said. She inhaled. The air felt thin at first, catching under her ribs. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. Again. The room seemed to recede, the charts, the agitated tapping, even the glow of the city. For those measured seconds, there was just the sound of his voice, the rhythm of numbers that didn't ask her to perform, only to exist. By the fourth breath, she realized her hands had stopped shaking. "Notice anything?" he asked quietly. "I noticed we're 15 seconds past your 60, she shot back automatically. But the edge was softer. "Congratulations, I'm slightly less homicidal." A ripple of relieved laughter moved through the room. Malik smiled, small and genuine. "That's how it starts," he said. "Calm for calm. You bring the storm. I'll bring this. We'll meet in the middle." Something dangerous flickered in her chest. Hope, maybe, thin and unfamiliar. She swallowed it down. "We still have a fire to put out." "And you're better equipped to do it now than you were 5 minutes ago," he replied. "That's the only reason I'm here." For the rest of the meeting, she kept her focus razor-sharp, dissecting strategies, redirecting panic, commanding the room the way she always did. But every time her pulse spiked, her gaze found his at the far side of the table. Each time he met her eyes without flinching. "In. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Storm and calm trading glances like a secret. It wasn't much. But when the boardroom finally emptied and the door clicked shut behind the last executive, she realized her legs weren't shaking as she stood. She realized something else too. For the first time in a very long time, someone had seen the storm in her, and instead of backing away or trying to cage it, he'd simply stayed. Tessa didn't realize she'd been staring at the same spreadsheet cell for 5 full minutes until the numbers started to blur. It was hours after the boardroom meeting. Most of the floor had emptied, leaving only a few pools of light across the open-plan space. Her office still glowed bright as a stage, glass walls turning it into a display case. She sat behind her desk, silk blouse clinging to her curves, jacket thrown over the back of her chair. Her heels were off, tucked neatly to the side, but her spine stayed bolt straight, like the chair itself was holding her upright. On the screen, projections shifted from red to orange. It should have felt like a victory. It didn't. Her phone buzzed near her elbow. "Mom, call when you can, just to hear your voice." No rush. No rush. Tessa closed her eyes. For a second, the office disappeared and she was 16 again, sitting at the edge of her mother's bed, whispering into the phone with the school counselor on hold while her mother's chest rose too fast, fingers clawed at the sheets. "Mom, just breathe. In for 4, out for 6. You're okay. I've got you." Back then, calm had been a thing she performed for someone else. Now it was a thing everyone assumed she just naturally had. She opened her eyes, blinked the memory away, and forced herself back to the present. Crisis, numbers, plans, things she could control, except her own body, apparently. Her heart was hammering, palms damp. There was a tightness under her ribs, as if somebody had cinched a belt around her lungs. She took a breath and it snagged halfway in. Not now. She pushed back her chair so quickly it bumped the wall. The sound cracked through the quiet like a gunshot. She stood, smoothing her skirt over her hips, and crossed the office with more determination than coordination. Her reflection in the glass wall met her, thick, curvy, polished, silk blouse still immaculate. She looked like a woman in command. She felt like a woman standing in the eye of a hurricane with no idea which way the next gust would hit. Tessa reached for the door handle, missed it, and had to steady herself with a hand flat against the glass. Her own fingers looked pale. In, 1, 2, 3, 4. The count came unbidden, Malik's voice echoing in her memory. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She tried it. The first breath was ragged, the second less so. Still, the walls of her office felt too close. Staying here, trapped in her glass box, suddenly seemed like the worst idea she'd ever had. She stepped into the corridor barefoot, heels dangling from her right hand, cool carpet grounding the heat under her skin. The open-plan offices were dark now, rows of empty chairs and dormant screens glowing faint like a city of sleeping machines. The elevator at the far end hovered with its soft halo of light. Instead, she turned toward the emergency stairwell. The metal door groaned softly as she pushed through. The stairwell was cooler, the hum of the building louder here, a distant mechanical heartbeat. Harsh industrial lights painted the concrete in grey stripes. She dropped onto the first landing, pressing her back to the wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the cold step. Her silk blouse whispered against the concrete. Her knees drew up, skirt stretching across her thighs, and she pressed the heel of her hand gently to her sternum as if she could push the panic back in. In, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She counted under her breath, voice barely audible. It helped a little, not enough. Most people picked the elevator. The voice was low, steady, and way too close. Tessa's eyes flew open. Malik was sitting 3 steps below her, one elbow propped casually on his knee, looking up at her. He wore the same dark shirt now untucked by, sleeves still rolled, charcoal trousers creased from a long day. There was a backpack beside him, half zipped, like he'd been on his way out. She hadn't heard the door open. No footsteps. Had he been here already? "What are you doing?" she demanded, a little too sharp. "Lurking in stairwells now?" He huffed a breath that might have been a laugh. "You're the one hiding, Langford. I just came here to breathe." Her jaw clenched. "I'm not hiding. I'm working," he finished, eyes warm, not mocking. "Sure. On your breathing, apparently." She glared at him. "I didn't invite commentary. You didn't invite me to the building either," he said mildly. "But here we are." There was a beat of silence. The hum of the building filled it, the distant whir of ventilation, the faint vibration underfoot. He shifted, resting his forearms on his knees, hands hanging loose. His big, steady hands. She'd noticed them in the boardroom. Working hands, not just ornamental. "You're doing the count wrong," he said quietly. She bristled. I invented the count. He tilted his head. Did you? Something in his tone stopped her from snapping back. She looked away, focusing on the metal railing instead. 16, she said finally, voice low. My mom, she used to have panic attacks, bad ones. I'd sit at the side of her bed and count for her, in for 4, out for 6. It's the only thing that worked. And now you're doing it for yourself, he said. Except you're rushing the exhale. She hadn't realized she was. You know what's infuriating about you? She asked. Just one thing? He raised a brow. That's progress. Despite herself, a small, unwilling laugh broke through her tight chest. It hurt and helped at the same time. You talk like you've got nothing at stake, she said, like you can just stroll in and out of people's disasters without getting touched by any of it. His gaze flicked to her, sharper now. Is that what you think calm is? She shrugged, shoulder brushing the cold wall. You're not the one whose name is on half these decks. You're not the one the board calls at 3 a.m. You get to come in, give a speech, make us breathe, and then disappear. There it was. Acid and hurt, wrapped in silk. He didn't flinch. You ever hear of compassion fatigue? He asked. This isn't a TED talk. Humour me. His voice softened. I used to work as an EMT. Nights. City like this, where everything's too bright and too fast. Car crashes, overdoses, heart attacks in grocery store aisles. You see enough of that, you start to believe the whole world is an emergency. She turned her head slowly, studying him. You, she said, skeptical. You don't look like someone who breaks. I didn't break, he said. I leaked. Anger, mostly. Snapped at people. Drove too fast off shift. Stared at the ceiling instead of sleeping. Told myself I was fine because I could still move. His eyes met hers. There was something raw there under the calm. Then one night, he continued, I froze in the back of the ambulance. Just blank. No adrenaline. No nothing. My partner had to shake me. The patient was okay. I wasn't. He stayed quiet for a moment, letting that hang between them. I quit 2 months later, he said. Not because I didn't care, because I'd started confusing being flooded with being alive. I had to learn to separate the two. Tessa swallowed. Her throat ached. So now you teach breathing in boardrooms, she said, but the bite was gone. Now I teach people in crisis that calm isn't the absence of caring, he corrected gently. It's the space where you can actually do something about the caring. Her eyes stung suddenly. Absolutely not. She looked up at the stairwell light instead, blinking hard. Her voice came out rough. Do you ever get tired of being the one talking people down? All the time, he said simply. That's why I practice what I make you do. Otherwise I'd just be performing calm while my insides riot. His lips quirked. I've done that. It sucks. She let out a breath that was very close to a sob, but came out as a choked laugh instead. The belt around her chest loosened another notch. Malik reached slowly for his bag, pulled out a small worn notebook and a pen. He tore out a page with careful fingers, folded it once and held it up. Open palm. No pressure. Homework, he said. She narrowed her eyes. Oh, absolutely not. It's not for me, he said. It's for your nervous system. 3 times a day. Before you open your email in the morning, before lunch and before you go home. In for 4, out for 6, 10 rounds. No multitasking. No screens. Just breathe. I don't have time to schedule breathing like a meeting. He arched a brow. You schedule bathroom breaks? She hesitated, then admitted. No. There's your problem, he said. You treat being human like a glitch in your calendar. The ridiculous accuracy of that made her snort. And what do I do when the building's metaphorically on fire? She asked. Because it feels like that. Constantly. He unfolded the paper, wrote something on it, then walked up 2 steps toward her. Close enough for her to smell the faint mix of clean soap and something warm on his skin, but not close enough to crowd her. Stand up for a second, he said. She hesitated, then let him tug her gaze upward as if that were a kind of handhold. She pushed herself up, bare feet against the cool concrete, silk blouse brushing her skin. He held the note between them, not touching her. She had to reach out to take it, and she did, her fingers brushing the edge of his, a brief electric contact. You do this, he said, whenever it's burning. She unfolded the paper. In neat, deliberate handwriting, it said, in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Repeat until you remember you're more than this moment. Underneath, he'd drawn a tiny storm cloud with rain, and next to it a small, steady flame. What is that supposed to be? She asked, throat thick. You, he said, storm and pilot light. You burn out the oxygen if you don't balance both. Her eyes blurred. This time she couldn't blink the tears away fast enough. One slipped free, hot against her cheek. She stiffened, mortified. Fantastic, she muttered. Cry in the stairwell with the consultant. Knew low. You're allowed to leak, Langford, he said softly. Doesn't make you weak, just makes you human. She laughed weakly through the tears. You say that like it's not a liability. Maybe it's your biggest asset, he replied. People don't follow stone statues. They follow storms that don't pretend they're sunny days. The words hit harder than she expected. She pressed the note to her chest, fingers trembling around the paper. Why do you care? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. You could just collect your check, deliver your workshop, and move on to the next burning building. He studied her for a long moment, the quiet between them thick as fog. Because I've seen what happens when someone like you collapses, he said finally. You're holding more than your own weight. When you go down, other people get crushed. I'd rather meet you here in the stairwell while you're still standing. His honesty stole the breath from her in a way that, for once, didn't feel like panic. For a moment they just stood there, her barefoot and tear-streaked in silk, him steady and solid on the step below, hands relaxed at his sides, calm for calm. She tucked the note carefully into her bra above her heart, feeling ridiculous and oddly protected. Don't read into that, she warned. His lips twitched. I wasn't going to, but if you lose it, I'm charging for a replacement. She rolled her eyes. You charge for napkin doodles now? I charge for showing up when you're pretending you don't need anyone, he said. Storm management tax. His teasing was light, but his gaze had gone softer, warmer. It made something inside her tilt. Fine, she said, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. I'll do your stupid homework. He reached into his bag again, pulled out a small pack of tissues, and extended one toward her slowly, open palm, no sudden moves. She took it. Good, he said, because tomorrow I'm sitting in on your 9 a.m. crisis call, and I'd like to meet the version of you who remembers she's more than this moment. She snorted. Good luck with that. He smiled, small and real. It's not luck, Tessa. It's practice. When he finally pushed open the stairwell door and left her alone, the hum of the building rushed back in. The panic hadn't vanished completely, but it had shifted like a storm moving offshore. She slid back down onto the step, pressed her palm lightly over the folded note against her skin, and counted her breath. In. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For the first time, the calm she found didn't feel like something borrowed. It felt like something they were building, storm and steady flame, meeting halfway in the quiet concrete middle of a stairwell. By 9:03 a.m., the crisis call had already turned into a chorus of overlapping panic. Tessa, the statement's too soft. If we say we're investigating, they'll assume. We can't afford another delay. Voices crashed over each other through the conference speaker, pixelated faces flickering on the wall screen. Charts slid past, red arrows and angry headlines. Someone's child screamed in the background, someone else muted to curse. At the head of the table, Tessa sat very, very still. Her midnight silk blouse hugged her curves, blazer off, hair pulled into a low twist that was already losing a strand. Barely anyone on the call noticed the small folded note resting beneath her palm, like a secret anchor. Malik was at the far end of the room, chair angled slightly so he could see her profile. He looked like he always did, solid, unhurried, hands relaxed, but his attention was sharp, fixed on her. Tessa, the CFO demanded, voice 2 steps from frantic. We need direction. She could feel it, the storm rising. That old familiar rush, heat in her chest, buzzing in her ears, the knife-edge urge to snap and force everyone into line. The stories in the news. The quiet dread that if she misstepped, it wouldn't just be her job on the line, it would be the entire team's stability. Her pulse kicked hard. The old script rose like a reflex. Push harder, talk faster, make decisions so sharp they cut. Her thumb brushed the edge of the note on her hand instead. In. 1, 2, 3, 4. Her lungs fought her, wanting to stay shallow, quick. She closed her eyes for half a second, not enough to lose control, just enough to signal something inside her. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The room thinned. The noise sharpened into individual sounds instead of one roaring wave. Tessa? The CEO's voice was closer to pleading now. She opened her eyes. On the screen, dozens of worried faces flickered. In the room, her team watched her like she was the last barrier between them and a landslide. At the far end of the table, Malik's gaze met hers. He lifted his hand slightly. Open palm. No rush, no pressure. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. "Okay," she said, and even she was startled by how steady she sounded. "Everyone mute for 30 seconds. Tessa, we don't have—" "I'm not asking," she cut in. "Mute. Camera's on. 30 seconds. Something in her tone, sharp, yes, but grounded, made them obey. Little red microphone icons flashed across the screen until only hers remained. She took a slow breath, feeling the silk against her ribs. In. 2, 3, 4. She didn't say the numbers out loud, but she could feel them in the cadence like secret scaffolding under her words. "Look at me," she said. "All of you." Dozens of eyes lifted. "I know you're scared," she continued. Her throat threatened to close on the word. She let it tremble instead of crushing it. "I am too. We're not going to pretend this isn't serious. We're not going to spin. But we are not going to make decisions from sheer panic either." Her team in the room shifted, something loosening in the air. "We have 3 priorities today," she said, voice gaining strength with every syllable. "First, get the facts straight, even if they hurt. Second, communicate in plain language, no hiding behind jargon. Third, protect the people who trusted us enough to stick around this long. That's it. Everything else waits." On the screen, someone nodded slowly. Another lowered their shoulders, tension draining a fraction. "Legal," she continued. "You'll get a revised draft from me in 15 minutes. It will be transparent, specific, and probably give you heartburn." "That's fine. We'll handle it." Comms. "You're not sending a single tweet until we've all looked each stakeholder group in the eye and decided what we owe them." Ops. "No more Band-Aid fixes today. Rollbacks only if we can explain them in one sentence without lying by omission." A few people almost smiled at that. She exhaled, long and steady. "Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And one more thing," she added. "Before you open a new tab or write a single line, you're going to take 3 slow breaths. In for 4, out for 6. Because I need you thinking, not just reacting. If you can't focus, you can't help me, and I need all of you." There was a beat of silence. Then, one by one, she watched them obey. On tiny screens, shoulders dropped, chests rose and fell. Some closed their eyes briefly, others just stared at her, syncing their rhythm to the invisible count she kept in her head. Calm for calm. When the call ended 20 minutes later, the room felt different. Still tense. Still high stakes. But not frenzied. The moment the screen went black, her legs almost gave out. She sat down hard, hands gripping the arms of her chair. The boardroom's glass walls shimmered at the edges of her vision. She barely noticed the others leaving until the door clicked shut. When she looked up, Malik was the only one still there, his chair drawn a little closer now. He didn't say anything, just watched her, eyes warm and steady. "You were right," she managed, voice hoarse. "I hate that." "About which part?" he asked. "You being human, or breathing not killing you?" Her laugh came out shaky. "About the whole calm for calm thing. It actually worked." He leaned his forearms on the table, hands clasped loosely. "No," he said, "you worked. I just counted in the background." Her fingers found the note again, flattening it under her palm. "I thought I was going to pass out when they all started talking over each other." "Yeah," he said quietly. "I saw the storm coming." "And you just sat there?" "Yes. Why?" she demanded. "Isn't that your cue to swoop in and do your thing?" He shook his head. "My thing is not rescuing you from your own power, Tessa. It's helping you remember it's not the same as panic." She stared at him. Something inside her, wound tight for years, shifted. "You sound very wise," she said, "for someone who draws storm clouds on scrap paper." "Don't let the doodles fool you," he replied. "I'm mostly winging it like everyone else." A silence stretched, not awkward, just full. Thick as the summer air before rain. She realized his sleeves were still rolled, forearms corded with quiet strength. Realized she was staring. Realized she didn't want to look away. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Always." "When you froze in that ambulance, who talked you down?" He blinked, surprised by the question. His gaze dropped to his hands, then back to her. "A nurse," he said after a moment. "Tiny woman. I'd seen her handle 6 crashing patients in a row without raising her voice. When I locked up, she took my wrist, put my hand on the patient's shoulder and said, 'Feel that? That's why you're here. One breath at a time, Warren. His mouth curved a little. I quit a couple months later, but I still hear her when things go sideways. Tessa swallowed. So you're playing nurse with my boardroom. Something like that, he admitted. Except you don't get to quit this, so we find you a way to stay. Why? She pushed. The question had been gnawing at her since the stairwell. Why me? You meet a lot of storms, I'm guessing. He studied her, really studied her, like he was looking past the silk and the sharp edges. Because you remind me of people I've watched break, he said quietly. And because... He hesitated, then let the truth out anyway. Because when you stop bracing for impact, you're kind of stunning. Heat flashed up her neck, into her cheeks. She was very glad for once to be in an office with dimmer switches. You're not supposed to flirt with clients, she managed. I'm not, he said. I'm telling the truth. There's a difference. The air between them changed shape. He leaned back, giving her space. You have plans after this, he asked. Or are you going to spend the rest of the day saving the company single-handedly? She almost said yes on reflex. Meetings, decks, calls, the usual list of ways to avoid herself. Instead, she thought of her mother's text. Just to hear your voice. I was supposed to call my mom, she admitted. It's been a while. Call her, he said instantly. I'll still send you the next breathing worksheet without charging extra. She narrowed her eyes. You have worksheets? I will in about 2 hours, he said dryly. I'll write them between clients and overpriced coffee. The image of him in some cafe, sleeves rolled, pen moving over paper, hit her harder than it should have. What if I need more than a worksheet, she asked, voice softer. Not now, just in general. He understood what she was really asking. She could see it in the way his eyes warmed, then steadied. Then you call me, he said, and I'll sit in your stairwell or your kitchen or wherever you let me, and we'll count together until you remember how to do it without me. She felt something break open in her chest, quietly, like a dam giving way not to a flood, but to a river finally allowed to flow. That sounds dangerously like staying, she said. He smiled, small and sure. I'm good at staying. Learned that the hard way. She stood, silk hugging her curves, legs surprisingly stable. Walking around the table, she stopped beside him, closer than they'd ever been, without concrete steps between them. He tilted his head up to look at her. Up close, the flecks of gold in his dark eyes were impossible to miss. Offer's not one way, she said. I don't know how to be calm, but I do know how to weather storms. If yours ever comes back. He huffed a breath that was almost a laugh, almost a sigh. That's the deal then, he said. Your storm, my calm. My storm, your stubbornness. That's not what I said. Same thing. Her hand moved before her brain finished objecting. She reached out slowly, giving him time to move away. He didn't. Her fingers curled around his forearm, feeling the solid warmth there, the quiet strength that had watched her fall apart and held the line anyway. Thank you, she said, and her voice shook without breaking, for not trying to fix me, just meeting me. He turned his hand, carefully, giving her his palm, open, steady. She let her fingers slide into his. Thank you, he murmured back, for letting me. For a long moment they just stood like that, storm in silk and man of calm, breaths unconsciously sinking. In. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Outside the glass walls, the city churned on, loud and fast and merciless. Inside, for the first time in years, Tessa felt something like quiet bloom in her ribs. Not the absence of fear, not the end of crisis, just a different kind of beginning. Go call your mom, Malik said eventually, released gentle, fingers leaving warmth where they'd been. Go write my worksheets, she countered. He grinned. Bossy. Stormy, she corrected, turning toward the door. Try to keep up, Warren. He watched her leave, shoulders straight, steps purposeful, but not frantic now. As she disappeared down the corridor, he exhaled slowly, letting his own pulse settle. Calm for calm. He knew life would throw more fires their way. He knew she would push, and he would push back, and somewhere in the middle they would draw new blueprints for what strength looked like. But as the door closed behind her, he realized something with quiet certainty.